So you're dreaming about owning an automobile repair workshop. You see that every shop in town is booked solid, cars lined up outside, a line of customers waiting just to drop off keys. So why not open your own place and make a lot of money instead? Here's the gut punch. Bay capacity is a hard physical ceiling on revenue no matter how skilled you are. And most of the real margin in this business isn't even in labor. It's in parts. A mechanic owner who is genuinely excellent at the trade, someone who can diagnose in minutes what would take another shop half a day, can still run a marginal, barely surviving business if they don't understand where the actual money in this industry comes from. Being the best technician in town has almost nothing to do with whether the business survives. Let me break it down for you, what you're actually buying into. First, the taxonomy. Automobile workshop covers several genuinely different businesses, and each one has a different relationship with the two core constraints of this industry: bay capacity and parts margin. There's the independent general repair shop, the classic model, handling everything from brakes to check engine lights to full engine work, competing on trust and reputation in a local market. There's the specialty or performance shop, European makes, diesel trucks, transmissions specifically, performance tuning, which commands premium labor rates because of specialized knowledge and equipment, but serves a narrower customer base and has to work harder to keep bays full consistently, since a niche customer base doesn't generate the same steady walk-in volume a general shop can rely on. There's the franchise model, quick lube chains, transmission specialists, muffler and brake franchises, which trades a share of revenue and independence for a recognized brand, standardized processes, and often national parts purchasing power that an independent shop simply can't match. There's the dealership service department, which benefits from a captive customer base tied to warranty work and brand loyalty, but operates under manufacturer pricing constraints and often lower margins on routine maintenance in exchange for guaranteed volume. And there's the mobile mechanic model, which eliminates the fixed cost of a physical shop and bay capacity entirely, trading it for a completely different constraint: drive time between jobs, which caps daily billable hours in its own way, and a much narrower range of repairs that can realistically be done in a driveway or parking lot, rather than under a lift with full access to the vehicle. For this breakdown, we're building the numbers around a mid-size independent general repair shop, 4 to 6 bays, a small team of technicians, doing a mix of routine maintenance and mid-complexity repair work. This is the most common entry point for a mechanic going independent, and it's also where the gap between "I'm great at fixing cars" and "I understand how this business actually makes money" is widest. Entry costs. The instinct is to think the barrier to entry is your tool collection and a rented bay. That's part of it, but it dramatically understates what it actually takes to open a functioning multi-bay shop. Lease and build-out costs vary enormously by market and how much existing infrastructure a space has, but a shop space needs reinforced flooring rated for vehicle lifts, adequate ceiling height and structural support for 2-post or 4-post lifts, proper ventilation for exhaust and chemical fumes, and often a compressed air system running to every bay. Build-out costs for converting a generic commercial space into a functional multi-bay shop commonly run $50,000 to $200,000 depending on how much of that infrastructure already exists in the space you're leasing. A space that was previously used as a repair shop can save enormous build-out cost compared to converting a generic warehouse or retail shell from scratch, which is part of why so many independent shops end up in spaces with a long history of automotive use. The infrastructure is already there, and starting from raw commercial space is often prohibitively expensive by comparison. This is also where location and visibility economics come into play, and they matter differently here than they do for a lot of other small businesses. Unlike a restaurant or a retail shop, a repair shop doesn't necessarily need premium foot traffic retail frontage. Most customers arrive because they already have a car problem and searched for or were referred to a shop, not because they walked past a storefront and decided on impulse to get their brakes done. This means many successful independent shops operate out of lower-cost industrial or light commercial zones rather than expensive retail corridors, which meaningfully reduces the lease cost side of the entry equation compared to a business that genuinely depends on walk-by visibility. That said, visibility still matters in a narrower sense. A shop needs to be easy to find, easy to describe to someone giving directions, and ideally positioned somewhere a potential customer might notice it while driving past even if they don't stop that day, since automotive repair decisions often get made well after the first time someone notices a shop exists. Signage, a well-maintained lot, and a professional-looking building exterior do meaningful work here, because in a business where the customer often can't evaluate technical quality directly, visual cues about professionalism and cleanliness become a proxy the customer actually can judge, and they influence which shop gets the call when a problem arises. Vehicle lifts themselves are a significant line item. A single 2-post lift runs $3,000 to $6,000 installed, and a 4-post lift, often preferred for alignment work, can run $6,000 to $12,000. A 4 to 6 bay shop needs multiple lifts, and that alone can be $20,000 to $50,000 before you've bought a single wrench. Diagnostic equipment is where the real technical investment lives, and it's grown dramatically as vehicles have become more computerized. A quality OEM-level diagnostic scan tool capable of handling multiple manufacturers can run $5,000 to $15,000 per unit, and shops working on a wide range of makes often need several, since manufacturer-specific systems don't always talk to a single universal scanner the way a shop's marketing might imply to customers. Alignment machines, if you're offering that service, run $15,000 to $40,000. Add compressors, welding equipment, brake lathes, and general hand and power tools for each technician, and total equipment investment for a functional mid-size shop commonly runs $100,000 to $300,000. Licensing and certifications vary by state and by the specific services you offer. Emissions testing, for instance, often requires separate state certification and equipment, but the ongoing certification costs, particularly keeping OSA certifications current for your technicians, are a smaller but real recurring cost most first-time owners under budget, both in direct fees and in the paid time technicians spend maintaining those certifications instead of turning wrenches. And then there's initial parts inventory. Even a shop that primarily special orders parts for specific jobs needs a working stock of common consumables, filters, fluids, common brake components, belts, batteries, and that initial inventory investment commonly runs $10,000 to $30,000 just to be able to service walk-in customers without a delay on every basic job. A shop that special orders everything with no on-hand stock will lose walk-in customers to any competitor who can turn around a basic brake job same day instead of next week. Add it all up, and total startup costs for a functional 4 to 6 bay independent shop commonly run $200,000 to $500,000 before payroll for a single day of operation. This is dramatically higher than the "I've got my own tools" mental model most mechanics start with, and it's the single biggest reason so many skilled technicians who go independent do so undercapitalized, scraping together enough for the lease and the minimum equipment, with almost nothing left over to survive the ramp-up period before the shop has a full, reliable customer base. There's a quieter entry cost underneath all of this that deserves its own mention: the time and expense of actually building a customer base from zero. A dealership service department opens with a built-in customer base tied to every car they've ever sold. A franchise opens with brand recognition and often a corporate marketing push. An independent shop opens with none of that, just a sign on a building and whatever word of mouth the owner's reputation can generate from their prior work. The ramp-up period before a new independent shop reaches anything close to full bay utilization commonly runs 6 months to 2 years, and every month of that ramp-up is a month of paying full rent, insurance, and at minimum a skeleton staff, against a fraction of the eventual revenue the shop will need to be profitable. The hidden costs are where this business gets genuinely dangerous for a first-time owner, because several of them scale directly with how good your reputation gets, which is the opposite of what you'd intuitively expect. Comeback and warranty labor is the first one. When a repair doesn't fully fix the problem, or a related issue surfaces shortly after, most shops honor a warranty period and redo the work at no charge to the customer, which means you're paying your technicians time twice for work you only got paid for once. A shop with sloppy diagnostic practices can see comeback rates eat meaningfully into gross margin, and unlike a construction callback that might surface months later, automotive comebacks often surface within days or weeks, compounding quickly if there's a systemic diagnostic issue rather than an isolated mistake. Liability for misdiagnosis or damage during repair is a category most first-time shop owners underestimate until it happens. A technician can damage an adjacent component while repairing the original problem, or a misdiagnosis can lead to a customer paying for a repair that didn't fix their actual issue, and now needing a second repair on top of the first. Garage liability insurance, which covers this exposure along with the general risks of having customer vehicles on your property, is a substantial and non-optional cost, commonly running several thousand to tens of thousands of dollars a year depending on shop size, technician count, and claims history. Garage keepers coverage specifically, which protects customer vehicles while they're in your care, custody, and control, is a separate and equally essential policy that a surprising number of new shop owners don't realize they need until a customer's vehicle is damaged on their lot. Equipment calibration and maintenance is a quieter recurring cost. Diagnostic equipment, alignment machines, and lift safety systems all require periodic calibration and inspection to remain accurate and legally compliant, and this isn't a one-time expense. It's an ongoing annual cost that scales with how much equipment you've bought, meaning the shops with the most sophisticated diagnostic capability also carry the highest ongoing calibration overhead. Lift inspections in particular are often legally mandated on a recurring schedule. Since a lift failure isn't just a costly repair, it's a serious safety incident waiting to happen. And technician turnover and training cost is arguably the most underestimated hidden cost in this entire business. Skilled technicians, particularly those certified on newer vehicle systems, are in genuine demand, and a shop that doesn't pay competitively or doesn't offer a path to growth will lose its best people to competitors or dealerships. Replacing a skilled technician means both a direct hiring and training cost and an indirect cost in lost productivity and lost customer trust during the transition. Since customers often develop loyalty to a specific technician they trust with their vehicle, not just to the shop's name on the sign. A shop that loses a senior technician can see bay utilization drop noticeably for months, not because there's less work available, but because customers who specifically wanted that technician either wait for their return or follow them elsewhere. There's one more structural decision that shapes almost everything else in this business, and it's one most first-time shop owners inherit from whatever shop they used to work at rather than actually choosing deliberately: how you pay your technicians. The two dominant models are flat rate pay and hourly pay, and they create genuinely different incentives on the shop floor. Under flat rate pay, a technician is paid a set number of hours for a given job regardless of how long it actually takes them. The industry publishes standardized labor time guides for nearly every repair on nearly every vehicle, and a technician who can complete a job faster than the guide time effectively earns a higher real hourly rate, while a technician who takes longer than guide time earns less per actual hour worked. This creates a powerful incentive for speed and efficiency, which is exactly why many shops prefer it. A fast, skilled technician on flat rate can generate significantly more billable hours in a week than their actual clocked hours would suggest, and the shop benefits from that same efficiency and bay turnover. But flat rate pay creates its own risks that a shop owner has to actively manage. A technician paid purely on flat rate has a financial incentive to rush, which can quietly increase comeback rates if speed starts coming at the expense of thoroughness. It also creates income volatility for the technician themselves. A slow week of complex, low labor time jobs can mean a genuinely bad paycheck through no fault of the technician's skill, which is part of why technician turnover tends to run higher in shops using pure flat rate pay without some kind of guaranteed minimum built in. Hourly pay is more predictable for the technician and removes the incentive to rush, but it also removes the built-in incentive for efficiency that flat rate pay creates, and a shop paying purely hourly has to rely much more heavily on direct management and scheduling discipline to keep bay hour utilization high, rather than letting the pay structure itself do some of that work. Many shops land on a hybrid, a guaranteed hourly minimum with a flat rate-based bonus structure layered on top once a technician clears a certain threshold of billable hours in a given pay period. This tends to capture some of the efficiency incentive of flat rate pay while reducing the income volatility that drives turnover, though it adds administrative complexity in tracking and calculating pay correctly every period. Whichever model a shop chooses, it's directly shaping comeback rates, technician retention, and bay hour utilization all at once, which means the pay structure isn't just an HR decision, it's one of the core levers determining whether the business is actually profitable. Let's make the parts versus labor math concrete, because it's the single most counterintuitive number in this entire business. Take a mid-complexity repair job, say a water pump replacement that takes 3 hours of labor at a $90 an hour shop rate, generating $270 in labor revenue. The water pump and related gasket kit might cost the shop $60 from a supplier. At a typical parts markup of 75%, that part gets billed to the customer at $105, generating $45 of parts gross profit on top of the labor. On the surface, the labor line looks like the bigger number, $270 versus $105. But look at the technician's actual cost to the shop for those 3 hours, say $30 an hour in wages plus payroll burden, $90 total. That leaves $180 of labor gross profit against $45 of parts gross profit for this particular job. Labor still wins on this specific example, but the math shifts dramatically on jobs involving more expensive components. A transmission repair, an engine component, an infotainment module, anywhere the part itself costs several hundred to several $1,000s, that same 75% markup on a much larger base number can generate parts gross profit that meets or exceeds the labor gross profit on the same job, even though the labor hours might be similar. This is why shops that specialize in higher parts cost repairs, or that simply price parts with real discipline rather than matching online retail prices out of guilt, can be significantly more profitable than a shop doing the same number of billable hours on parts light jobs like basic maintenance. Now, the real profit mechanism, because this is where automotive repair economics actually diverge sharply from what most first-time owners assume walking in. The core engine, more than most people entering this business realize, is parts markup rather than labor. Shops typically mark up parts costs somewhere between 50 and 100% over what they pay their suppliers, and on many jobs, particularly ones involving expensive components, the parts markup contributes as much or more to gross profit than the labor charge does. This is a genuinely counterintuitive fact for a skilled technician who's spent their career being paid and valued primarily for their labor. The business skill that actually drives profitability here is closer to procurement and pricing discipline than to diagnostic speed. Bay hour utilization is the second core mechanic, and it's the true physical constraint on this business in a way that's easy to underestimate. A shop has a fixed number of bays, and each bay can only generate revenue when there's a vehicle in it being actively worked on. A bay sitting empty for an hour is an hour of potential labor revenue that's gone permanently. It can't be recovered later the way a retail business might make up a slow morning with a busy afternoon. This means the real capacity ceiling of a shop isn't the number of customers who want service, it's the number of billable bay hours physically available in a week, and a shop running near full utilization during peak hours while sitting mostly empty in off hours is leaving real revenue on the table that a smarter scheduling approach, extended hours, appointment staggering, or a second shift could capture. Diagnostic time versus billable repair time is the third mechanic, and it's a genuine tension in how this business gets priced. Complex diagnostic work, chasing an intermittent electrical fault, for instance, can take hours of a technician's time before any actual repair work even begins, and shops have to decide how to price that diagnostic time, as a flat diagnostic fee charged regardless of outcome, as time billed at the standard labor rate, or in some cases, absorbed as a cost of winning the repair job itself. The workshops that consistently underprice diagnostic time relative to the actual hours it consumes are effectively subsidizing their most complex, skill-intensive work, which is exactly backwards from how the pricing should reward technical expertise. Structural risk and a case study. The core structural risk in this business is key person dependency. A shop's reputation and repeat business often concentrate around one or two highly skilled technicians rather than the business itself, and if that person leaves, whether to open a competing shop, join a dealership, or simply retire, a meaningful share of the customer base can leave with them. This is a fundamentally different risk profile than a business built around a process or a facility, where the business's value is more independent of any single employee. This dynamic has played out repeatedly across the franchise side of this industry as well, where several national repair chains have faced scrutiny and reputational damage tied to allegations of unnecessary upselling or unneeded repairs recommended to meet corporate sales targets, a structural tension that emerges directly from the volume versus margin pressure built into a franchise model, where corporate revenue targets can push individual shop managers toward recommending work that protects the numbers more than it protects the customer relationship. The broader lesson isn't that franchises are inherently dishonest, it's that a business model built around aggressive volume targets, layered on top of a service where the customer usually can't independently verify whether the recommended work was actually necessary, creates a structural incentive problem that shows up repeatedly across the industry regardless of any individual owner's intentions. Bull versus bear. In the bull case, you've got a shop with consistently high bay utilization across most of the operating week, disciplined parts markup that isn't eroded by price matching every competitor's online parts pricing, low technician turnover built on competitive pay and a real career path, and a strong local reputation that generates repeat business and referrals rather than depending on price-based advertising to fill bays. That shop can be a genuinely durable business, with net margins commonly in the 10 to 20% range, supported by a customer base that trusts the shop enough not to shop every repair around before committing, and by technicians who feel enough ownership over the shop's reputation to keep comeback rates low without constant oversight. In the bear case, you're a shop in a price-competitive market where bay utilization sits well below capacity for large stretches of the week. You're matching aggressive competitor pricing on both labor and parts just to keep bays occupied. Your most skilled technician has just left to open a competing shop down the street and taken a meaningful chunk of your regular customers with them, and you're now scrambling to hire and train a replacement while your remaining technicians are stretched thin covering the gap. That shop can slide from apparently busy, cars in the lot, a full schedule on paper, to barely breaking even, because busy and profitable are not the same thing in a business where parts margin discipline and technician retention matter more than how many cars roll through the door. The reframe. You didn't start a business fixing cars. You started a business selling bay hours and parts margin, with a wrench attached. Your actual product isn't the repair itself. It's your ability to keep bays consistently occupied with profitable work, price parts and diagnostic time in a way that actually reflects your expertise, and retain the skilled people whose reputation the business depends on, all without losing the trust that keeps customers coming back instead of shopping every repair around town. The shops that last aren't necessarily run by the best technicians in the market. They're run by people who understood that the wrench, however essential to the actual work, was never really the point of the business itself. That's the real economics of owning an automobile workshop.